Hello and welcome back to another Design Clips here at W+9. This is Dawn Woolslegel, and today I'm super excited to be participating in MISTI Maynia. The wonderful folks over at My Sweet Petunia are giving away a mini Misty every day in the month of May, and today it's my turn. So be sure to head over to my blog for all of the details where you will enter to win. So I thought what better way than to show you guys the Misty in action. I love the Misty. I have the original, so my grid is actually on a film here, but they have, continued to improve this particular tool, and now they're etched in. So, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, girl. I've told you guys that before. Mine is working fabulously, so there's no reason for me to buy a new one just yet. Now, there's a lot of special techniques that you can do with the Misty, and I will link you in the description box, and I'll throw some cards up here to some videos where I'll show you some really cool things that you can do with the Misty. However, I also wanted to show you that you can use it for your everyday stamping. A lot of the times my mind is moving faster than my hands, and I end up doing what I like to call stutter stamping, and there's nothing worse than when you're stamping out a large pattern and you mess up along the way. You get like a half impression or your stamp shifts slightly on you. So I want my pattern to continue off the right side and off the bottom. So I've lined my cardstock up with that grid line right around the 6-inch mark, and that's going to be my indicator if my card shifts or if I move it. That's where I want to make sure that I always line it up to, and then tuck it right up against that left side. I'm going to be using the outlined and the solid images for this particular card. So I'm going to start by stamping the outlines first, and I'm doing that in our flamingo ink. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to add the outlines of the leaves as well. I want to lay out each individual little cluster where I'm using the outlines because I don't want the outlines to overlap. So I'm going to complete each cluster and then move on to the next cluster. And for the leaves, I'm using our Ocean Drive ink. So I'm going to continue to add all of my largest elements first, and those are the ones that I'll be using the outlined on. The rest of them I'll just be filling in with the solid images, but I wanted these larger flowers to really be the focal point, so I'm using the outlines for those. And here you can see this, my pattern is hanging off the card, so by moving my cardstock up just a little bit, I left enough room for that stamp to actually be able to fit onto the stamping platform there. Alright, now that I've got all of the outlines done, I'm going to stop and start building up the rest. And that way I don't go overboard. I can always add more, but I can't take it away. So I'm going to come in and start filling in some of these solid stamps now. And for that, I'm using our Miami Spice. And you'll notice that I slightly offset this. I love the graphic design of these images. They're a little wonky, a little off, but I love when they're not perfectly lined up. Now with the Misty, you can perfectly line these up, and here I'll show you on this next flower. It's really easy to perfectly line that up. You can see here my card shifted a little bit, so I just put it right back at that mark, and now I can perfectly line this up, and it's going to fit in there like a dream. See? But I do prefer to offset these just a little bit. But if you are a stickler for precision, then this is where this tool really comes in handy. Now I'm going to do the inside of the leaves, and for that I'm going to be using our last leaf. It's a really bright chartreusey green, and I just love it. And I think it looks great with that Ocean Drive. And then once I've filled in the leaves, I'm going to come in and start adding in some smaller flowers. When I build my patterns, I like to work from my largest elements down to my smallest elements. I also like to try to repeat the colors, so I repeated the Ocean Drive, and now I will pick another one of the smaller images, the small flowers in here, and I'm going to introduce a new color. So for this one, I need to throw in some yellow. I just felt like it needed a nice bright yellow. So for that, I'm going to use our Wild Mango. And here's a perfect example. I didn't get the greatest impression. There was a piece of glitter stuck on my stamp there. So I just re-inked it and stamped again. And then I decided that I actually wanted it to be softer. It was a little bit too bright. And this Wild Mango is orangey yellow. It's a yellow, but it's more on the orange side. So I just re-inked it with our white pigment ink and stamped right on top of it. And I came out with this really soft peach color that looks great with the Miami Spice, since it's also a peachy color. So I just thought that that was another really great use for the Misty. I would have never been able to line those up to stamp on top of each other if I was not using the MISTI. Yeah, don't even, I don't know how some people can just freehand stamp that thing right exactly in the same spot. It's not happening with me. That's why I embrace the wonky offset look. So I'm just going to finish up with these little flowers, and then I added in another of the little flowers from this set. And again, I'm repeating that flamingo color. And for these, the littler stamps, I just pick up the block and do those. I do find the littler stamps easy to just put on an acrylic block. So I'll just fill in the remaining little ones here. I like to work again in triangles, and I try to work in odd numbers. And I've got a lot of colors going here. So if you guys know me, you know that if I'm using a lot of different colors, I'm going to ground them all with a punch of black. Looking at this, you know, I could have just put in some yellow centers, and it probably would have been great. It'd been nice and soft, but I just need that contrast, and that stark, crisp black just adds that little pop, makes it all just seem so crisp. And I don't know, it's a personal preference. But you could most certainly just stamp these centers that are included in here with like a bright yellow, or you could emboss them or cover them with glossy accents. That would be really pretty as well. But for me, I wanted to keep this nice and simple, flat, one layer, and just very graphic. So for me, the black fit the bill. And finally, I felt like there were still some bare spots, so I'm just going to fill in with those flower centers and just sprinkle some of those. And I may have gone overboard and sprinkled quite a few. I like those retro looking patterns, and I don't know, I think a sprinkling of dots makes everything better. You know, it's kind of like cheddar. Dots make everything better. Okay, and finally, here's another reason that I really like the MISTI. I can experiment with where I can kind of preview. I can preview where my sentiment is going to go before I actually commit to it. This is something that is harder to do with an acrylic block. So I'm going to line up, excuse my head here, I'm lining up my sentiment. I've kind of put it together here, and then I'm going to pick it up on the door. Now I can continue to just kind of move my card around, preview where I want to stamp this. Because I'm stamping it directly on the card base, this is really important. So I want to make sure that nothing is going to be obstructed, nothing's going to get in the way. One of those black dots isn't going to be in a funny spot and make my sentiment read incorrectly. So here I can just kind of move this all around and experiment with where I want to stamp it. And then once I get it exactly where I want it, all I have to do is just ink it up and stamp it down. And again here, my U is much darker than my kind. I must have done some uneven inking. So I'll just ink it up again. Ink it up again just to make sure. And then close the door and stamp it. And then I just finished this one up by adding another little cluster of flower and dots in the upper corner here. And then that will complete the card. I just trimmed it down to 4 by 5.5 inches and adhered it to a top folding card base. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to check the description box below for the link to my blog where you can be entered to win your very own mini MISTI. A great big thank you to My Sweet Petunia for allowing me to give away one, and a great big thank you to you guys for stopping by today. I will see you next time. Bye.